Hey Red Mages, I'm Drade Kylian. I'm a Red Mage main from Hyperion. I've been playing since Asphodelos, and I've seen a lot of people talking about difficulties with Red Mage's damage in the Sugar Riot ad phase. So I thought I would give some perspective on how I handle the phase and various different ways that you can approach things. This isn't an ideal run, I just took this from my reclears this week, but it's good enough to illustrate some tips that are very important for the phase. So going into the phase, I'm holding mana here. I had a little bit of a mishap earlier in the phase, so I don't quite overcap here, but typically when I'm holding mana here, I would overcap. Like, there's just a very small overcap here, but I send a dual cast where the second one is just late enough to hit the Yawn, and then I do one more Swift Cast GCD on the Yawn. So now when I start my melee combo, as long as we've got most of the party standing here, the cat jumps, it's likely to land here, and then everybody is able to move off, but the cat is here for our cleave just in time for the finishers. The timing that I mentioned specifically gets you all three of your finishers on it. Now, if you are smart, unlike I was in this pull, you can move towards the moos instead of away from them to make it easier to line up your resolution. Because here I try to use just a manual lineup of the resolution and I don't quite get the moves, but if you're standing on the moves, then you'll automatically hit the Yawn while targeting it and still hit all of the moves and Sugar Riot there. Right here, I do two more dual casts to prepare for the burst window, since typical PF strategy is to delay burst here. I saw that the Yawn was about to die, so I switched over to the cat, just to make sure that my casts don't get interrupted. And then over here, I will also switch targets to the group to send a little bit of cleave over, because that's right when Contra Sixt comes off of cooldown. This is after the standard opener, because there isn't really a reason to do the early C6 opener in this fight. Right here, because of the fact that the next sequence is pretty tight on movement, I am holding my GCD here to ensure that I can do a melee combo as soon as possible on my Ray here. So I hold the GCD, start a 1E2-3 combo, and then I move over to here. I'm using this blue mark on the ground as a reference for where to bait my water, because at this point I can target the pack of mobs that are over on the northeast. It kind of was a little sloppy here, but typically you can, if you're really clean with it, which I typically am able to do, but it is a little bit awkward, what you can do is send your first two finishers at the northeast ray, then target switch back to your ray, wait for the puddle to appear, core to your ray, and then target switch back to the other ray. I have a keybind for previous target, and that is one of the most helpful keybinds ever when you're dealing with a phase like this that has a lot of target priority. I used it a lot in T Living Liquid phase for dealing with dolls, and it's incredibly helpful in this phase as well. So if you aren't already using a previous target keybind, then I highly recommend using it. Anyway, as I go back to my Ray here, I want to sprint so that I can move away in time for this water to be baited into the corner and not hit anyone else. In the middle of those combos, I'm also using a charge of acceleration, because it's going to overcap, so you need to make sure that you get that used. Right here, after 4 GCDs after my combo sequence is done, I target the boss and Addle, and then 6 GCDs after I use Magic Barrier. Obviously, it's pretty self-explanatory that I'm targeting the Jabber here. If you still had Moose alive here, then you would be not wanting to use your AoE combo. You do not want to be using your AoE combo in this situation, because number one priority is the Jabber, and the Moose will have a little bit of time left after the Jabber dies to take them down. Obviously, at this point, there's nothing really else for me to target, so I'm switching over to the cat. Could also be attacking the Yawn here, but the cat is kind of a higher priority for you, because other players will not be able to target the cat nearly as easily, particularly the melees. Right here, I'm using an instant cast to pick up the Feather Ray, because if you try to do a hard cast on the Feather Ray, it's liable to be picked up by someone else by just not picking it up in time. At this point, we had a little bit of unclean here because my my targeting was a bit rough here, but you want to be switching back to targeting the Jabber. There are some instances here where you can dual cast through this puddle placement, and some instances where you won't be able to. Around here, you want to be using your potion if you're potting at this point, and also using charge of acceleration just to make sure that you can get your movement in, and some cleave in. And at this point, you want to switch targeting to the Feather Ray and make sure it dies as soon as possible. In this scenario, I see that the Ray's a bit higher HP than I would want to do an AoE combo, so I do a single target combo to ensure that it dies and I don't end up placing that additional puddle. And then I automatically switch to the cat, because the cat is definitely going to be the higher priority before we switch to the other Ray. At this point, we're coming up on the next burst window, so you can hit your Manification and just ensure that you get a combo off. Here, the last Ray died a little faster than I was expecting. It just sort of jumped HP, so I did have a little bit of a rough burst window there. At that point, Addle comes off cooldown, so you can go ahead and use that on the second ready or not. You can see I'm having a little bit of trouble here because the adds are dying faster than I'm expecting. I'm still not quite used to killing with this amount of gear, but essentially you're just hopping back and forth in the very end of it. If your damage isn't quite as good, you can get away with spending a bit more time on one group, some AoE combos in there as well, because if the moves aren't dying immediately like they were in this run, then you have a little bit more time to get some combos off while there's actually multiple targets. But I hope that reviewing this has been pretty useful. Red Mage probably has some of the most damage variance out of any DPS job in this phase, just because of how easy it is for us to waste our cleave. So if you take a look at, particularly in the burst window at the start of the phase, and make sure that you are using your cleave efficiently here to hit the adds on the other side, then that should really help you out with getting a much higher damage ceiling in this phase. So, good luck, and I hope this helps you out.